It's 44, almost the time, and we are getting more and more audience in this room. All right, welcome to the Ohio Family Engagement Leadership Summit. We're glad you could join us on this day of professional learning, mean to take family, school, community partnership to the next level. My name is Fan Xu, and I will be this session's moderator. This session is session 13, Partnership for Literacy. If you have any questions, concern, or a technical issue, please message me privately in the chat. If you would like the contact hour for this session, a code will be provided at the end of this session, and please be on the outlook for this code, as it only will be provided once. To ensure that all get the most out of today, we ask that all participants turn off their webcam and microphone. If you have questions for the presenter, please use the chat feature, and I will pass them along at an appropriate time. You can also join the conversation on Twitter. Be sure to use the hashtag hash OHSummit24. I will drop it into our chat to share your thoughts. All right, here you go. So today we are glad to have 6 speakers in this session, and welcome speakers. Before we start, share in the chat with us what organization or district you are from and what brought you here to this session today. So without further ado, I'll give time to our speakers to let them introduce themselves.
Thank you so much, Fan, and to everyone else that's here, it's so nice to have you here today at our summit. I am Dr. Meredith Wellman, and I'm one of the authors of the Partnerships for Literacy program, which I'll share a little bit about today with you. I also work at the Ohio Statewide Family Engagement Center. Dr. Barbara Boone, our director, is my co-author for Partnerships for Literacy. And as you can see on the screen, I have 2 littles at home, and together with my husband, we live in Westerville, Ohio, so right here in the central Ohio area. My kids are a source of inspiration to me every day, as are the many other families in Ohio that Dr. Boone and I have worked with over the years, and I'm thrilled to be helping out with this session in particular. So a little bit about our program. Dr. Boone and I initially developed the materials in 2018 as part of a grant from the Ohio Department of Education and Workforce. And since then, we've kind of tested and improved upon the materials to make them what they are today. So what is it exactly? Who's it for? It's a process that elementary schools can use and a set of tools to go along with that process. And really, it was developed for elementary schools so that schools will be inspired by research-backed practices or validated by knowing that their practices are research-backed, and that also so that they will have a process for improvement. So I'll show you this 7-step process in a moment on the next slide, but I want to talk a little bit more about our impact in Ohio. So last school year, 9 school districts participated in a seminar to learn about implementing this program in their schools, and you'll hear from 3 of those districts today. Prior to last year, we worked with 21 school districts between 2019 and 2021, which really allowed us to pilot the materials and collect data at 2 different time points. And so schools shared the results of what we call an inventory of their family engagement and literacy practices. And so they rated a bunch of different items on 2 different scales. I'm not going to go too much into that right now because I want you to hear from our districts, but the summary is that school teams rated themselves higher on their quantity and quality of supports for family engagement and literacy after following our Partnerships for Literacy process and using our tools. So you may be wondering how to access those materials. We have a free implementation guide on our website, and that's really the most sort of independent, self-paced way to learn about this process and begin implementing it in your schools. So we've got a web page. We'll put the link in the chat for you. And so you can anytime go on our website, download that implementation guide. You can print off and utilize it. We now also have created, as of this year, a self-paced seminar if you still want to be self-paced more or less, but it really simulates what we've done in our live online seminar with school leads and coaches who support implementation. So starting October 1st, that is when anyone can begin registering for that seminar. And so when you register, we'll ask you if you want us to connect you to one of Ohio's state support team regional coaches for family engagement. So we not only have a seminar available starting October 1st, we also have coaches in every regional office in Ohio who are familiar with Partnerships for Literacy and can be a great resource to schools in Ohio. A special thank you to the Ohio Department of Education and Workforce for being such amazing partners with our team and funding the development of this self-paced seminar, because otherwise, as you know, if things are only offered at one point in time, that's not a universal design for people to learn and utilize materials. So that's what we're working towards. There are a few other resources on our webpage as well. We've got impact reports and some video recordings that share more about the program. All right, so that's a little bit about Partnerships for Literacy in a nutshell. And now on the screen, I'm going to show you what we call the roadmap for schools. So this is a suggested set of steps and pacing for kind of moving through the process. And before I really go into the steps, I just want to say I think this connects really well to our summit theme of family engagement by design, because this roadmap shares how schools can design and continue rethinking their partnership programs for literacy over time. All right, so step one is prepare your school. So this is in typically the first year of implementation. The very first things in our implementation guide, we have a really comprehensive set of resources for this preparation step. So this is before you kind of bring a whole team together, including family and community partners. There's 4 focused discussions for internal teams. And so in our self-paced modules, we have animated videos demonstrating how to facilitate those internal meetings, which is very cool. And then step 2 of the process is to build a team, including family and community representation alongside educators in the schools. Step 3 is inventory your practices. And as part of this, we have a specific process that you can move through, a set of items that schools can use. And within that inventory, there are 3 areas of family engagement in literacy that schools rate themselves on. And those are two-way communication, supports for learning at home, and strategic community partnerships. So this is really a discussion-based inventory that teams can use. And this is all still in year 1, so step 4 is to create and redesign action steps. So teams leverage that information that they've just gathered from that inventorying process to then say, okay, what do we need to focus on? What do we need to prioritize? And within that kind of step 4, there's a redesign tool they can use to consider different options to take existing practices from, maybe here to here. So kind of elevate existing practices by redesigning them, just like you heard Dr. Novak talking about this morning, if you were able to join our keynote. Step 5 is that teams implement and track within their buildings their action steps. And so really, we're moving into year 2 of implementation now. So once they've done that initial planning and inventorying, then they begin implementing. And then step 6 is really to reflect. So review and re-inventory their practices using the same inventory tool. So you have like a kind of a pre and post from year 1 to year 2, and celebrating successes as well. And then step 7 is sustaining this. So we all know people come and go from schools and partner organizations, and there's also shifts in priorities. But ideally, if this system, this process is in place, the work can continue no matter who's on board. So the tools can be used and reused year in and year out. All right, so here are the districts that participated in the seminar this past school year. And so next you're going to hear from 3 of them about what they learned from the seminar that we provided about this process and how they're integrating what they learned into their school systems. Columbus, Kent, and Brooklyn, they may all be at slightly different points along the roadmap, And that's to be expected. Every sort of site is unique and has different capacities, different staff in place. That infrastructure piece can look different everywhere. And so without further ado, I don't want to take up any more of the time from the schools that are here today. So I'm going to go ahead and move us along. We're going to first hear from one of our smaller urban districts, Brooklyn City Schools, which is, if you're familiar with Ohio, about 15 minutes south of Cleveland. And so I have the pleasure of introducing Susie, an intervention specialist who completed the seminar last school year with us, and Karen Valenza from Brooklyn City Schools. Just say next slide when you're ready for me to advance.
All right, got it. Thank you. Welcome, everybody. Thanks for participating in this session. My role at Brooklyn City Schools is instructional coach. So I've been working closely with Susie and developing partnerships in literacy. I came on board here primarily to support literacy development in our district. So it was a perfect fit for Susie and I then to mesh what we're both doing in the partnerships in literacy initiative. One thing that we like to say in Brooklyn is that, we're not only teaching students to read, so we want them to learn to read, but we also want them to love to read. And one of our mottos is that we empower families and community to be active partners in our students' literacy development. So again, that's why this partnerships in literacy course has been instrumental for us. So we are going to talk to you about how our schools, families, and our community partners play integral roles in this belief, because we have been focusing on and improving our two-way communication with families about literacy. We've been working on supporting language and literacy at home, and we've been developing stronger community partnerships with literacy. Next slide, please, Meredith. So when we talk about the school's role in literacy, we believe that our school's primary role is to provide the nuts and bolts, or the X's and O's, if you will, of reading, while communicating with families about literacy and joining efforts with our community partners. So in other words, we believe we're the hub for our students' literacy development. And one area that we've really worked hard in the last few years is supporting the transition from preschool to kindergarten. With our students, we offer a summer kickoff program with a heavy literacy emphasis. What's great about this also is that this is the first time we get to actually communicate with our parents as they're bringing their children to the program. And we spend a lot of time with parents giving them suggestions for how they can get their child ready for school. And by the way, that picture there was just taken a few weeks ago. We had a kickoff at our stadium for the school year. Yes, kindergarten, as you know, is the class of 2037. And we were so happy that Chomps from the Cleveland Browns was able to be there with us in that event. Next slide, please. So we wanted to share with you, just so to put it into context that things are actually working, is we were part of, as maybe some of the other representatives here have been, in the CLSD grant for Ohio. As you can see, our trajectory that's down there in the left corner was our early literacy growth in the last 3 years. And so we do believe that some of the things that we've put into place have been working, because we've been on the front line and cutting edge of reading research. Our MTSS framework and our tiers of instruction that we've put together has a heavy emphasis on parent communication and keeping parents updated in terms of their child's progress, not just at the beginning of the year. As we know, if you're here from Ohio, with third grade reading guarantee, there are things that we must do at the beginning of the school year. But here in Brooklyn, we're making sure that the letters that parents receive at the beginning of the year isn't the last time that we're communicating with parents about their child's growth. One of the ways that we're doing that is all of our mandated letters that are going home from the state. We have QR codes on them, and when the parents go to the QR code, they are taken to a folder of ideas and suggestions for a way that they can support their child's reading at home. And right now we have 9 different languages that QR code takes them to. And thanks to the partnerships in literacy, that is where we found them, because on the website that's available to anyone for the Ohio Family Engagement site, there's different folders in there of reading activities, and they're already in multiple languages. So we use those. Also this year, in order to unify and make a one-stop shop for school to parent home communication, our district did adopt the use of something called Parent Square, which some of you might be familiar with. We're still working out the kinks to that, but one thing that we really love about it is that it offers immediate, seamless, two-way, instant translations for families. And so in our district, we represent 14 different languages here. And so for us, that is essential in making sure parents not only get information from us translated immediately, but then they also, in communicating back to us, it translates it back to our language for our teachers is English here. We also purchased, which is interesting, it's a device called Time Kettle is the company, and the device is called Fluent Talk, and it's a handheld instant translator. So if you're not familiar with that, we also bought some of those for the district, so that as we have parents that are coming into the office asking for different things, instead of us trying to use our own phones and other ways to communicate, these are just little handheld devices. Everyone in the district knows where they are. So if we have a parent we need to communicate with in real time, we can use one of the Fluent Talk devices in order to do that.
Did you say that was called Time Kettle, or did I just make that up?
Yeah, the company, no, you didn't make it up. The company is called Time Kettle, but the device, it's called Fluent Talk, and it's all one word, Fluent Talk.
Huh, okay.
Yeah, so if you look those up right now, again, we have Susie here, has been using them for a little bit, but then this year, district-wide, we have them spaced throughout the district, and people know where they are to help communicate with families. And I think I'm going to pass it along to Susie. Okay.
Next slide.
Next slide.
All right.
Our primary is to actively involve everyone in their child's reading development by supporting language and literacy through learning at home. Next slide. We've been focused on supporting language and literacy at home by encouraging and helping to establish a rich environment. We've been sponsoring events. We provide experiences for children and families that hopefully are fun and engaging, having staff model fun and engaging ideas with literacy. One thing we did recently was a My Guy Walk, where we had a local author come. She presented her books in both English and Spanish, and we just really highlighted the role of guys in the role of learning with our kids. Next slide. We've turned our open house, parent conferences, and family literacy night into an opportunity for our parents to learn about and see literacy in action. Staff members facilitate stations for parents to rotate where they can get that hands-on experience with reading activities that are easy to implement. Also, we've been trying to make our school have books everywhere, just enrich our building. So we have book vending machines, we have shelves in our vestibule by our main office that are gently used that parents can read, take home, share with others while they're waiting for rides or meetings. And we also have a Brooklyn Bookmobile, where again, we do gently used books. We wheel them out for different events throughout the school year when parents are in the building and welcome them to take them home. Next slide. We love, love, love our community partners. Our community partners' primary role is to provide those essential resources for our programs and to support our systems to enhance that student's literacy. Next slide. Our district used to do a program where we gave one book to everyone in our school. And this was something that we had to rethink because we were hitting a lot of barriers with this program. So we've been focusing on maybe not just choosing one book, but choosing many different books that can create a theme for our school, where a local business sponsors, our police and fire department comes to read, our public library. We do a scavenger hunt throughout our community, like I'm sure many of you do with this program. And we invite partners to participate in person and not just support with monetary or supplies. So this is one program. Next slide, please. Another activity we did was to invite our partners to our stadium. We had the local library come out and introduce their summer reading program, and just community members to come and read on our stadium turf. Next slide, please.
Well, finally, we've been talking about our goals for this year, and earlier Meredith was showing kind of the roadmap of the timeline and the order that things should be done. We've came about it a little bit different way. So we've been working so hard to establish these partnerships. What we haven't done is have a formal partnerships and literacy team. So we have our own team in-house, we have our go-to people, but what we haven't done is made that a priority. And so this year is that we established the literacy team. A second goal for this year is that we continue to grow. We've been what's considered an open door. If you look at the materials from this partnerships and literacy course, they describe the different types of schools that you could be. So we've been what we consider an open door, and we want to end up being a partnership school this year. So that's our short-term goal for this year. And the other thing we need to do is assess our practices. There's a great survey that they have. It's a family or early that we got through the course.
Karen, I think when you're not directly in front of the computer, then it like cuts out. There you go. That should be better.
Back.
Yes.
So that survey is a great way to assess your practices. And I think that Meredith talked about that earlier. And so we are always in the middle of talking about what can we do better? How can we grow? What actions can we take? And actually right before we came on this meeting, Susie and I were talking about, we have our My Guy Walk coming up the week after next. And one of the things Susie talked about is like, if what we're offering isn't going to get you here, what more can we do? Like, what can we do so that you can participate? So that's where we're at with
All right. Thank you so much for your time today, Karen and Susie, and for everyone at Brooklyn City Schools that's really contributing to this climate and culture of partnership, and particularly in this area of family engagement in early literacy. Thank you so much. If you do have any specific questions for them, you can feel free to put those in the chat at any time. And we may also have a little time at the end. We'll see, to answer questions. All right. Next up, we have Rochelle and Giovanna from Columbus here to talk to you about their partnerships for literacy work. They are overseeing work in a lot of buildings. Obviously, Columbus is a huge district. And so I'm really excited for you to hear sort of their piece of the puzzle and how they are taking what they learned and doing great stuff. So without further ado.
Thank you, Meredith. My name is Rochelle Wilkerson, and I have the privilege of being one of the supervisors for the Division of Early Childhood Education for Columbus City Schools. And we are just so excited to be able to share some of our work under the leadership of our amazing superintendent, Dr. Angela Chapman. Our goal this year is to dream big and achieve more. And I have the honor of presenting with Miss Giovanna Tyree. She is one of our ECE specialists who focuses on our family and community engagement. We also have some members of our team on this call that we cannot do this work alone, so I definitely want to shout out our amazing team of professionals, including my co-supervisor, Lindsay Kubley, and our director, Dr. Tara Baker. When we started our journey towards the Partnerships for Literacy program, like Brooklyn schools shared, it was through the Comprehensive Literacy State Development Grant, and we received our first award in 2020. And the goal of that grant really was to improve literacy skills for disadvantaged children, especially looking at ELF, English learners, students living in poverty, and students with disabilities. And through this process, it brought us to our Partnerships for Literacy, and it really gave us the opportunity to combine two teams. The teams that were working directly with our two identified schools that were participating in the grant, and our family and community engagement team, where we have the amazing Giovanna. So we looked at our team roles and our responsibilities, and again, aligned those with our district goals of improved literacy in students grade pre-K through 12, and looked at how we could shift our practice. So again, I say we were on that track. We were on that roadmap that Meredith shared. But we really wanted to look at how we could leverage both groups to increase our participation, and then also really show how we could improve the data of our students' literacy scores, along with increasing our level of family and community engagement. And with that, I am going to turn it over to Giovanna to share a little bit about what we exactly did to meet those goals.
Okay, awesome. Again, good evening, good afternoon. My name is Giovanna Tyree, and I have the privilege of being an ECE specialist, so an early childhood specialist. I have the distinct honor of focusing on family engagement. So I am excited to share with you some of the wonderful opportunities we were able to provide for families and partner with families, as well as collaborating with wonderful organizations in our Central Ohio Columbus community. Once again, we had the specific emphasis in our ECE, or early childhood department, on focusing on literacy at home, making that homeschool connection, making sure our families were aware of the literacy resources and information. So we set it up so that there were in-person and virtual family engagement opportunities every single month. We also wanted to leverage resources from the community and our partners to make sure that we provided fun opportunities where our families could learn together. So if we go to the next slide, I'll share a little bit more about that and then how we reach those goals. So we're going to focus specifically on last year, what we did. At the end, I'll share a little bit about what we're doing this year. But just specifically last year, this is our family engagement calendar. And it was specific for pre-K because we wanted pre-K families to know that we have opportunities specifically for them to learn and grow with their families. We heard from our pre-K families that they wanted opportunities to learn in the community, right? So not just at the schools, but within the community. And because of that, we leverage the partnerships of some of our amazing community partners. I'll go through a couple of them. So not only did we start the school year off by leveraging with the obvious partners like Columbus Metropolitan Library, but we also worked with organizations like Franklin Park Conservatory, COSI, our Grange Audubon Center, our nationally ranked Columbus Zoo, and other organizations. At the end of the school year, the beginning and the end of the school year, we had two great events, our kickoff to pre-K and our countdown to kindergarten. And these two great events bookended our wonderful engagement opportunities for our families, and they were also in the community. With this community focus, we asked our partners to not only provide space, but opportunities for our families to learn. So our families got to come to these spaces, but learn alongside our professionals, our ECE teachers, literacy specific activities, but also learn from our community partners. So I wish I could show slides of the smiling faces at every single one of these. And if you're interested in that, I will drop in the chat my email and I will gladly share more information. But in the interest of time, we can go ahead to the next slide where I'll talk a little bit more about how we achieve some of our literacy goals. So every month we had these we had these family engagement events that had literacy focus, right? So at each one of these events, we made sure that our families walked away with not only information on how they can make that homeschool connection for literacy, but also resources and books. And at every event, there were pre-K coordinators as well as pre-K teachers there to help facilitate the learning. So we gave families not only information, but hands-on opportunities to work with their children towards literacy goals. We crafted these events around the data that we saw where our students were lacking in the KRA. So we used the KRA data from the previous year. We pulled out some areas like rhyming, letter identification, beginning sounds, and we focused on those areas to provide opportunities, resources, and activities for families to learn together and take those home with them. So in this list, it's a small list, but once again, I'm willing to share with anybody. We had books that correlated, we had resources, and then we also showed how that tied in with a literacy goal. Kristen Foster is on here, and I have to give her a shout out because this is actually her chart that she created, and she is an ECE teacher and coordinator who helped to work alongside me to make sure we were hitting these literacy goals and areas. I will also have to say, I love the way Brooklyn talked about supporting their ELL families. In Columbus, we have a huge and diverse population of languages and cultures. And so in an effort to support those families, we made sure that at every event, we had language translators. We call them bells. And we also had flyers translated in multiple languages. We used multiple modalities to reach our families. So we used phones, text, and emails, and those were translated into the families' given languages so that they would all have equitable access to this. A really important thing to point out is not every family is able to make an in-person event, right? So we also offered virtual opportunities for families to receive information. And at after every event, we made sure to send information out to all of our families, so the families that participated and the families that did not. And on our family engagement webpage, which I'll make sure to drop in the chat at some point, we every month post the resources and activities from every event. So that way, even if you didn't come to one of our wonderful family engagement events, you got to see the resources that we used and maybe our community partner resources that were given away at that event. Thank you. I'll kick it back over to Rochelle.
Thank you, Giovanna. So as you can see, we really used our Partnership for Literacy process as a roadmap to really define our work. And through the participation in this program, we've been very reflective. And I love how Meredith put in the chat, data-driven, because at the end of the day, we really want to make sure that the efforts that we're doing are showing the results that we want. And we are proud to say that through Giovanna wonderfully shared some of this information in our first virtual family event, that 90% of our families that we have surveyed said that they feel like they have a closer relationship with their students' classroom and have a clear understanding of what the goals are for their children and what the outcomes are. We've also really looked at taking these district level events and helping our building level teams to use the same process to be reflective so that they can provide additional activities, events, and opportunities that directly align with their school community. We also wish that we could serve every single student before they come to kindergarten here at Columbus City Schools, but we honor families' choices. But we are seeing that the students who participate in our early childhood program are outperforming the students who do not. Statistically, over the past 3 years, kindergarten students who have attended our program have outperformed the students who did not on the kindergarten readiness assessment. And that is really our strongest indicator that our literacy work is making a difference. Lastly, We also are being very responsive to the families. And as Joe mentioned, we are a highly diverse district. So this year, one of our areas of focus is to really work on the subgroups within our student population, specifically fathers who work with early learners or single fathers, our ESL populations, and specifically the families of students with disabilities. So we're really, really looking towards using the data and continuing this momentum that we have created through our work with the Partnership for Literacy process. And with that,
Ooh, none of us are bored, are we? We are busy people, and it's just amazing to see all the strengths that come out when we're asked, what are we currently doing? And I love how you just talked about the Partnerships for Literacy process allows you to be reflective, to maybe make some connections across teams that were doing work towards similar goals, but maybe not necessarily collaborating to the extent that you could have been. And I'm always just impressed when I hear about the partners that you've brought in. So intentional, and you really do capitalize on that time with families in those events, in those touch points, to provide resources. I was very impressed by the Columbus Zoo event that I attended just to check out your work. So keep up the great work. And thank you so much for everyone from Columbus that's here. Apparently there's more people in the background here as participants. That's amazing. Feel free to put any questions for Columbus in the chat box. And now we're going to transition to Kent City School District. Last but certainly not least, this is Louise from Kent City Schools. Kent, if you're familiar with Ohio, is about 45 minutes southeast of Cleveland. Do I have that right?
Yeah.
More or less.
Right by
Okay.
Akron. Yeah.
I used some Google Map action there. And Louise is a consultant in charge of family engagement planning, and I'm thrilled that she's here to share about her work and how it relates to our Partnerships for Literacy program.
Well, thank you so much. I am excited to be here. As I was mentioned, my name is Louise Fetchu. I am the Family and Community Engagement Consultant for Kent City School Districts. So I get to work with all 6 schools in our district, also one of the private schools that falls into our sector, and our CTE programming, our career technical education. So just a wide range of things that I get to do and be a part of, which is super special about this position. So just a few things you should know about me. I am the mother of 3 amazing, wild, free-spirited little girls. And I'm a newer to school parent. I am also newer to the world of education. I am a social worker by trade. I spent 8 years in social services. After that, I spent 2 years in policy writing and then 6 years in workforce management. So I have spent this is my 3.5 years, I suppose, third. But I joined at the end of a school year. So I was very new to education. I decided to make the transition and re-career myself when my oldest daughter started kindergarten. So while many of my skills were transferable, there was still a lot that I had to learn, and I was able to use my learning curve to help families better understand things. So I really use that to my advantage. But before we dive deeper, I just want to give a huge shout out to the Ohio Statewide Family Engagement Center, who played an instrumental role in our timeline and our rollout of our new dyslexia legislation requirements. So if you have not used them as a resource, go ahead, bookmark them now. The toolkits available on the websites, the flow charts, everything. It was just instrumental for us because we were able to use those resources as a jumping off point here at Kent, adapt them to meet our educator needs and our family needs, and just really give us a place to kind of start with everything. I'm going to the next slide. So shout out.
FYI, there's new translations that have been added. So we have those resources in more language versions if you guys haven't checked those out recently.
Awesome. That's wonderful. So one of my favorite quotes by Mark Twain is, don't use a $5 word when a 50-cent word will do. And I think we tend to do that so much, especially in our communication. So when you look at step 3 in the Partnership for Literacy, inventorying your practices, it dives into communication. And as I mentioned earlier, I use my learning curve when entering the world of education to help better serve our families. And we first did this with our written communication. So instead of looking at it through an educator's eye, right, like we know what we're saying, we're looking at it from a family perspective. Are we making sense in these letters that we're mailing out? Do parents and caregivers have any idea what we are saying? Is it our language or their language? Or is it just alphabet soup to them? It was funny when I first came into education, I was sitting in a meeting and they kept saying ELA, ELA, ELA. And I'm like, yeah, all right, that's English language arts. I got that. But then halfway through the meeting, ELA got replaced with Hegarty. And then I was like, oh, maybe it doesn't mean English language arts. And, here I am, an employee with a school district, and I'm sitting in this meeting and all of these words keep flying around. And then later that week, I get a letter home from my own child's teacher with some of these letters in it, right? ELA, and I have no idea still like what I'm reading. So I really used that fresh perspective when we look at family engagement. And I always try to keep that in mind still today when we're communicating with parents. So sometimes less is more, right? But if we are doing less, we still need to make sure that we're having the same value and that the same information is getting out there. So just kind of things to think about, especially when it comes to our written communication. So after we kind of streamlined some of our written communication, we really wanted to stay on that same trend, like value added. So just switching gears a little bit, everyone here has the same box to check, right? Like Title I Family Engagement Night. But like, are we adding value or are we just checking a box? Is there any impact there? So when you look at step 4, like create, redesign your action steps, or like even at step 6, because we've kind of revisited and re-inventoried our practices because of all of this. We really wanted to focus on what is our impact now for our family engagement night. So when I first came on, like I said, I came in like at the end of a school year. We still had not done our Title I family night. So we literally were just checking a box, right? We had 1 vendor in attendance, 10 attendees for, 4 elementary schools. Not great, right? And then the next year, we changed it a little bit. We brought in some community partners and we had 13 vendors there from the community to really help with the impact, to help with the family support, the family engagement, and 87 attendees. And still we're like, okay, people are showing up, but not enough. We have 4 elementary schools in our district. How can we get the people there? So we came up, really brainstorming, rethinking our team, looking at the development and thinking, okay, how can we get more educators involved? That we were at more of a grassroots engagement level. And then somebody came up with this fantastic idea of hosting a trunk or treat. And man, did we get the people then. The next year we had 25 community partners show up. We had, it says 591 documented attending, but we had more than that because there was people, coming in groups and stuff. So 600 people, like we're finally starting to get the numbers. So now as we're looking at that, we're saying, okay, we finally have come up with a plan that has people show up. Now, how can we have the impact? Where can we add the resources for parents? Where can we incorporate that engagement part of the evening. So we're not just checking a box. So parents are leaving saying like, oh, hey, I understand that better. Or, hey, I know where to go to get this resource now, and really being able to wrap around their child's educational journey. So we're coming up with some great brainstorming already for this year. And I'm so excited about the boost that we'll be able to have and the resources, and just the ownership that we're having more of the community take in events like this. And really coming together. It's just been really incredible. And if we hadn't taken those steps back to like re-inventory our process, and if we just kept checking a box, like, would we still have 10 people in attendance? Would parents leave there thinking like, oh, wow, I really got a lot out of this night and my child had so much fun. What a great family experience this was. So I think that's like a very vital step when we're breaking down what we're doing, because we're not all here to check boxes. We want to have impact. We want our families to know we support them, and we want them to feel supported too. So I'll head to the next slide.
I just want to, point out a couple things while we're still here. So you've mentioned how you kind of reframed it into be a fun, like a more fun, family-oriented activity associated with, traditions and holiday. I also don't want you to sort of lose sight of the fact that you did a lot of different types of communication, accessible communication, which may also feed into why more families are feeling like you have a welcoming, positive culture and climate that makes them want to be there. So it's like everything goes hand in hand into making school this friendly place.
Yeah, thank you for adding that, because it really does kind of like, it all happens together. And when it happens together, it's great. So, another one of my most favorite quotes is like, the single biggest problem in communication is that the illusion that it has taken place, right? So like, we send out these communications and we think we told families everything, and then families are reading it, they're not comprehending it, they don't understand exactly what they're doing, they don't know what the next step is. But we did it, we sent it out. But no, we're really re-looking at that, making sure that not just with our face-to-face interactions, but our written communication, that we're really taking all that into consideration to help, then when kids are in the class, when parents are in parent-teacher conferences, that piece for it to all fit together. So that's all I have for Ket, and thank you guys so much for having me today. The workshops were so fantastic, and we were able to use so many of the steps to kind of framework some of the processes here, and it's just been so beneficial. So,
all right. So I see some questions that are happening in the chat. Thank you, Louise, and thank you also. Please share our thanks with everyone at Kent that made your time here possible today. We've heard a lot. We've heard about apps, we've heard about events, we've heard about shifting the way we're communicating, using QR codes and bringing in those strategic community partners. And I also just really appreciate how this is part of a process. And whether you're using the Partnerships for Literacy process or just ongoing work in your schools, it can be planful, it can be a creative time to redesign things. And so thanks again to our school presenters. I would love for people to share in the chat as we shift from the school presentations, just one thing you heard that you're going to take away with you, or one next step. And I'd also love to hear from the schools that presented, maybe something you heard from a fellow presenter that you're thinking about now. Or maybe you want to share about who you're going to share these things back with in your home community. So I'll give you a minute to do that. And then I'm going to read the chat to catch up on that. Oh, I love what you said, Rochelle, about welcoming in siblings. That really goes well with, we're not just checking a box. So I've got in my house a 6-year-old and a 3-year-old. And there's so much that happens before that 3-year-old enters an elementary school building that's really important. There's so much talk about school. There's so much role modeling that happens between my daughter and my son. And so if schools can really tap into that, and even before the 6-year-old gets there, outreach into the community and welcome people to community-based events as opposed to our school is doing this for people in the schools already. That's such an important and powerful shift that I think a lot of us don't consider when we're planning, when we're considering who our audience is. So I appreciate your words there. Any other questions? If you want to come off mute now, we've got a few minutes here to delve deeper into anything you've heard about. Susie and Karen from Brooklyn said, we love the idea of having parent ambassadors available to translate languages or do live interpretation, I assume, at informal events. Thank you, Kent. This gave me thoughts of a community world cultures night. Thanks, Andrea. All right. Any remaining questions for our awesome presenters here? Our moderator has put a link to the flyer, so if you want to download and share that, starting October 1st, the experience that these schools had last school year has been shifted into a self-paced seminar now. So our team is always available to answer questions about partnerships for literacy, and starting October 1st, you'll be able to kind of walk through the steps with the self-paced seminar has discussion boards, so you'll be able to see what other participants are, how they're experiencing the material. And we're hoping that this will be a way to get the Partnerships for Literacy process into many more schools in our state and beyond.
Meredith, I also just wanted to add that in Columbus, because of the results that we have seen from our Partnerships for Literacy, we are expanding our focus not only on literacy for the 24-25 school year, but also adding numeracy to our events. So we are keeping up the momentum with that literacy focus, but we know that as a district, numeracy and literacy go right hand in hand with our early childhood students. So that is going to be part of our focus this year as well.
Thank you for sharing that. And that really goes along with that step 7. So we've shared in our seminars in the past that once you have a strong family school community partnerships team in place, if you've got a couple years under your belt with the Partnerships for Literacy process, that may be a good opportunity to consider other priorities within the schools that families can be important partners within. So whether it be math or positive behavior interventions and supports. So this team can be leveraged in different ways as you're sustaining this kind of continuous improvement cycle. And I know that out there are other inventories of things like family engagement in PBIS and family engagement in math. So you can utilize those resources kind of in place when you're ready of that family engagement and literacy inventory. So I think it can be sustained in a lot of different creative ways. Teams can rename that. You don't have to call it the Partnerships for Literacy team. We see this also in the NNPS work that our center supports, where what's not important is the exact words of what the team's called or what the inventory is called, but it's the discussions that take place, it's the relationship building, and it's that dedication to improvement. So I see some interest in the seminar and in the tools from other states. Absolutely feel free to use the implementation guide. I think for right now, we're kind of hoping that Ohio schools will get the experience of using the self-paced seminar, but in the future, we'll probably open that up to more schools and districts outside of Ohio. This is our first year using that new seminar in this format. So for now, Ohio. And that will allow our team to do a good job of kind of being responsive to the people taking it, make sure that they have appropriate access to things, and are having a good experience in that discussion board within the seminar. Yep, so to stay connected to this work, we do have a newsletter for more education-focused people, and you can find that on our website. On the homepage, if you scroll down, you'll find news and guidance. You can subscribe there to stay connected to this work and other work of our center. You can also just reach out directly to me. I'll put my email in the chat. And at our center, I'm really the one that focuses on literacy, but there's a lot of literacy people at our center beyond just me, including our center director, Dr. Boone. Thank you, Fan. Yep, there's our homepage. Tiara, do you want to talk more about Gary's initiative since we've got a couple minutes?
Hello. Let me out. Yes, well, I'm from the Gary Community School Corporation, and hello. Our initiative is improving our literacy scores, and what we would like to do is partner with our community and our families in teaching the science of reading. We want to co-teach with our parents and give them tools that they can take home. And we want to take it a step further and have a literacy center where we assist our parents who may have some issues within themselves, and learning how to read and things like that. So this really lines up with what we're trying to do. We're including our instructional coaches, our community partners. We're trying to get our parents to support this and we also have a law that just passed in Indiana where we will be retaining our third graders if they don't pass the iRead. So we definitely want to, yes, co-teach with our parents. Yes, we do. We want to partner with our parents. We want them to, we want to improve our relationship. We want to build that trust. So our district just came back from state takeover. So we are really trying to engage our parents and let them come into the building, or we'll come to them. But that's what we're doing. This really lines up with where we're going. And we are really at the beginning, the very beginning of this initiative.
Yeah, definitely our process might provide you that necessary structure just to make sure that you don't get in those places where you're kind of spinning your wheels like, is this the logical next step? So this might just give you a little bit of that structure to continue those important conversations and adjustments as you move along. I love so much what you said about co-teaching with parents. I just did a session about the science of reading and dyslexia at a library this week. And coming out of that, I had so many ideas for how I could do it better. It really was humbling. But one of the ideas was, making sure that students with dyslexia or have struggled with reading are really represented in the presentation. So that student voice piece, the parent voice piece of what this feels like, what this looks like at home to navigate dyslexia and other reading challenges. So I appreciate what you said because parents and students both have a lot to teach within our school system, in addition to being sort of those learners and implementers at home. All right, I think we're about ready to close out our session. Thanks for all of your time today. I'm going to turn it over to our moderator now.
Thank you. Thank you, Louise, Rochelle, Giovanna, Susie, Karen, and Meredith for sharing your time and knowledge with us today. And audience, please join me to thank our speakers in the chat. So if this is your final session for the day, please be sure to take our survey by following the link. I'll drop it into the chat